Welcome to this HelloID webinar brought to you by Tools Forever. Today we'd like to give you an overview of the new functionality in HelloID. We encourage you to ask questions. You can do this via the chat option. You can find the option here. At the end of the demonstration, your questions will be answered. I'd like to turn this over now to Cheered Sign-In, HelloID Product Owner and Manager. He will explain and demonstrate the new HelloID functionality. Please enjoy, and don't forget to post a question.
Jamie, thank you for the introduction again. And hello, welcome everybody to this webinar. We just released beginning of this week the HelloID July release. And in this webinar, I'd like to give you an update on all the new functions and features we have delivered in this release. And that is already, of course, today available in your environment. Okay, I like to start with a PowerPoint presentation. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat box and I will answer them at the end of the webinar. So I first like to start with service automation. We have 6 new items in this release, and the first item is that now you have form details. So if an end user fills in a form, for example, to create a user, all first name, last name, all those elements are also being shown now in the request history. That was not available in the previous versions, but now as an admin, you can see what details in the request history that the user filled in. We have 2 new API support items. This is a small one, but now you can set the font awesome icon on the delegated form. And you'll also be able to delete a data source. These two in combination, I think are very powerful. So now you can create a PowerShell script, and by using the API, you can create a full set of delegated forms or products in the service automation section, including the tasks and the PowerShell scripts and everything that is associated with a product or a form, including, for example, the access rights. And you can also clean it up completely now because you have the last item that we had not available yet. And of course, including the icon. So now everything is available, and it will also be available on the doc site where we have this all documented with a full set of example scripts. For example, I think the first one now is to create an Active Directory user, and I will show you a little bit later on in this webinar. Smaller one in the requester, and that's for the form but also for the product. So the requester, that is the person that executes or invokes the form. We now have it to JSON. You already had all the attributes of that end user, but now you also have the JSON string that is all the attributes together. We also have a new report. I think we are adding more and more scheduled reports to inform the managers for product owners on things that has been, in this case, being improved in service automation. We also have the option now to have side-by-side form elements. You can actually see it quite nice here. We just had them underneath each other, but now you also have the option to put them side by side. Okay, provisioning. We have 3 new items. We now have the advanced contract rule. So this is a new element in the business role where you can set business role scoping on every attribute in a contract. That was only available, I think, on department and title, but now you can set it on every attribute in the contract. We also have expanded or extended the way to debug the provisioning. If something goes wrong, you had to contact iSupport with the stack driver ID. Now you have a dialog where you can see more details about what is going wrong for a particular error message. You can still contact iSupport, but we definitely have now more options to help yourself and to resolve the issue. Last but not least, in provisioning, I think very important options. Now you have multiple source systems. You only had one source system. Now you can have multiple source systems. So you can connect as many source systems as you like to the HelloID provisioning process. Okay, last module, and then I will start demoing the new software. You have an extra screen or option in the certificate screen where you can see the expiration date. In the last release in June, we already released the option that you will be informed by email if a certificate is about to expire for an application or IDP or your custom domain. But now you also have the option in the admin portal to overview, you have more status overview. Okay, we also included an ECK ID, that's for the Dutch school market. It's a hidden attribute. It's not visible in the UI, but it is in the user database. So you can use it in the mapping and in the API, but it's not visible in the UI. It's a hidden attribute. We also have included token management, and you have a role for that. So you can delegate management of two factors and importing of the auth tokens to a service desk employee without giving them access to all the configuration items in the admin portal for HelloID environment. So it's easier now to delegate specific tasks for token management to a service desk employee. We also have 3 new reports, failed logins, most common or most often used application usage, most active users, and the one in between here, it's not a report of course, is that you have the option to include a custom text on the login page. You can do that for the HelloID IDP, but also for external IDPs. We also included the multiple redirect URLs for OpenID SSO, and to change as a small one, change the default security role for users, so you can disable that. Okay, don't forget to post any questions. If you have questions, I answer them at the end of the product demo. But let's start now with demoing the new functionality. So let me share my admin portal. So I'm logged in as the administrator. And the first thing I'd like to show you in service automation is the request history. So if I go to the request history, you see here request history test. So this is a form. And so this was not included. So if a form was filled in by an end user, you did not see the data that that user filled in the request history. So that's now part of the request history. The API for the font awesome icon. So let me go to task. API support created. So this was already available. Of course, we already created a lot of information already, and you have a new option. So here it is. This is to create a delegated form, and this is the new option, FR icon, and I set it here as the secret. And of course, if I go to the portal, this is the created icon. Simple. The other one as part of the API, and that's the last thing I will show you based on the API, is that, for example, I just create a simple data source and just make it static. Save. Now I created the webinar data source. If I go to Postman here, I created 2 API. I first have to get the name of the GUID of the API. Already prepared it, so I can send it, and then I have the GUID of the API, and then I can delete that data source. Really, really simple. Success 200. And if I refresh, then of course the data source is being deleted. Yep. Okay. Requester. Again, a little bit technical, and I'm here in edit action in the product section, not in the form, but this is the product action section. And if I go to the variable section, I have here requester, first name, last name, etc. But then now this is new to JSON string. So all the requester variables are in one JSON string package. The report will show that later on. The side by side, I think that's really a nice one. So if I show you that is not side by side, so that is sequential. So this is just underneath each other. And if I go to the side by side, then it's next to each other. So this is underneath. So here, for example, first name, last name, first name, last name. Also show you briefly how you can configure this. This is not side by side, you're already familiar with that, but this is side by side. And this is the new option. With this, I can group elements together. And this is a grouped elements, a form row. And of course, I can also change the sequence inside. So now last name is first. I can also include on the same row the birthday. So now I have 3 elements on one row. Okay, so let me switch back to the PowerPoint, and then I will move over to the next item, and that is provisioning. So let me share my provisioning section. And the first thing I like to show you is the advanced contract rule. So that's in the business rule section. And let me edit a business rule. It's in the condition section, and we already had person attribute departments and titles. Actually, departments and titles is a part of a contract, but now we have this new option, contract attribute. And if I select the contract attribute, you can see that any attribute that is available on a contract is selectable, and you can put a filter on that. Interesting, of course, to see is that here is the department display name, and that's basically the same as the department display name or ID that's being used in this condition. So it's more or less of an overlap of functionality that was already available, but now you have a lot more options because you can filter on any different attribute. Okay, that was the first item, advanced contract rule. To show you, the next is the entitlement customer logging. So if you are in the entitlements overview, you can see, you can retry, but you also have this option that was already available. But now we have extended this with a dialog, and then it might take some time, but we retrieve information about the event that went wrong. And it could be that the information is still not enough for you to resolve the problem. So then you can still contact iSupport@toolsrever.com with this ID, and then they will help you further with resolving the problem. We will also extend the logging information if it's not enough to resolve the issues. So we already did our best to include as much relevant information as possible, but most likely we will continue to extend this dialogue with more information. So it should over time be good enough to resolve issues completely by yourself. Okay, last but not least, that's the support for multiple source system. And of course that's in the source system section, and we have the plus sign, and I already have 2 systems, but I can add as many systems as I like. And of course I can configure them. And you can also see that here you can see where the person is coming from, and you can configure this with a source display name. The display name is a name of the connector. So this is HR demo, and this is Raad, and of course I can also filter on that information. So now I will only see information that's coming from the HR demo from this connector. Another thing you could do is that I did in my environment, I included an extra custom field source, and by setting the source value, I can have a business rule, and of course that was already available, but I can say if the person is coming from the demo connector, I can specify different actions. And so I do this here, but that was already functionality that was already available. So this is the source as a custom variable, and I set this with the value demo, so that in the business rule, I can put a different action on that. Basically, in this business rule, there's a lot of users in the person database, and I only want to create accounts for the demo environment. So I put a filter on person custom source demo. Okay, again, go back to the PowerPoint. And the last module I like to demo on the new functionalities is in access management. So let me share access management with you. Okay, so first item is that the expiration date field, it's in certificates. This screen was already available, or this menu option, but this button is new. So now I can have a certificate overview, and of course this is nice in combination with the email alert for certificate expiration we released last month in June. And now you can see what the status is per certificate. So I can see when it's going to be expired. And I see this for applications, but also for custom portals and for IDP certificates. ACK ID, another hidden attribute. Again, this is for the Dutch school market. It's a required attribute to be hidden. So it's not visible in the interface. It's also not part of the extended attributes, but it is. You can actually use it in the mapping. So you can see it here, but it's not part of the auto completion. And let me go to Postman again, and here I get user information. And I will search for the administrative user. So here it is. This is the ACK ID that is visible on the API, not in the GUI, but in the API and in the mapper. The other item is token management. So it's part of the role section in the security tab. And if I just go to this role, this is a new item, manage second factors. And now as a service desk employee, I don't have access to any of the tabs in HelloID, but I only have access to these two items. And the manage gives you access to both, and configure only to auth management. And for auth management, here I can import and edit and delete tokens in combination with users. And of course, this is especially an item that you want to dedicate to the service desk without opening up the rest of the portal for that service desk employee. Okay, we also included a set of reports, the failed logins, and of course you can use this as part of the Insight scheduler. Here, scheduled reports. So I have configured them all here, and we're adding more and more reports to it. I think we have more than 10 types of different reports. Failed logins, so you can schedule this to send that to a particular set of employees in your organization. And another one is application usage. That's this report, so I can see how many users are using a particular application. You can total, but you can see the unique user counts. Most active users. That's this report. So I can see who's most active in the HelloID portal as an end user. Product recently improved, not really a nice report, so I think we do have to do something with the layout of these reports. But here I can see that the products I manage as a product owner, I can see that which has been recently be approved. Okay, let me go back to the role because there's one thing I would like to show you. Now the default user role, this was not editable, but now you have this edit option. And now, for example, I can say that the user role should not be longer set as default. Okay, getting close to the end of the my demo. If I log off, and so this is a new option. You can include a custom text for every login that's being presented by HelloID, and that is of course the local HelloID and the Active Directory IDP login. So those both um, login dialogues can be modified with this custom message, and you can change it. Oh, now I've been logged off. That's a bit stupid. Sorry for that. So here you can configure custom text, and this is the text you just saw. Okay, so let me go back to the PowerPoint presentation, and coming to the end of the webinar. Thank you so far for your interest. If I see that there are some questions, Jamie, can you ask the questions for me?
Hi, Cheered. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, good news on the multiple sources being available. It's creating a lot of buzz. Tell us, is it possible to do person aggregation between the different sources?
That's an interesting question. Now, if I go to the provisioning section, and if you have multiple sources, as I configured here, it's in the person vault, everything is combined together, and I cannot see the difference between, well, I can see, of course, the label where people are coming from, but I do currently today we do not do person aggregation. So suppose this is a student information system and this is the HR system. We cannot see if a person is also a student and a teacher. Those are now two different persons in the HelloID vault. So today it's not, it's definitely an item to consider. And if you like, you can actually go to our roadmap section and vote on this item. Thank you for your question.
Yeah, can you show me where I can find the documentation section to create forms via the API?
Yes, I can show you where you can find that documentation. Of course, it's on the docs section, docs.helloid.com. And if you go to the manual for administrators, it's completely at the bottom. It's the catalog of PowerShell scripts to create delegated forms, the whole stack of forms via the API. We only have one item at this moment, create AD account, but we will add a lot more. If you go here, you will see that all the detail information is available. This is a long PowerShell script, but if you execute a PowerShell script, you will get a more or less working environment. And so the end result is that you will get the service desk. It's to create AD form. It's this form, but we will add all these different forms as in the documentation section. So it will be included right here. So this will be a long list for all the items I just for all these forms you already have available. It's in the queue to be documented. Okay, let me go back to the PowerPoint. I think there's a last question.
Yeah, one more coming up here. Can you include the HTTP link in the login dialog?
Yep, that's an interesting question. So if you like, you can, if I log out. So basically what you want is to include an URL here so that I can link to give even more detailed information or do to self-service registration or something. That is not possible. So it also will open up security issues. So we need to be careful there. We would just like to see if this is going to be accepted as a new feature. And then this is definitely an option that we can include so that you can have a link to get even more information that we are displaying right here. Okay, and I think this is the end of it. Well, at least of this webinar. Thank you for your attention. I think again a very interesting release, a lot of new functionalities, and I hope to see you again in beginning of September for the August release. Thank you for your time and have a wonderful day. Thank you. Bye bye.